Mark, it was always going to be a challenge this afternoon against one of the bigger hitters in the division and with a new manager in charge, and so it proved to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the front two I thought James Collins was brilliant, to be fair. I thought he caused us lots of problems today. And the first half was tough. The wind was quite strong against us, and we found that quite difficult. We were a little bit anxious. It was a bit of a frantic game, really, as we thought it might be. And they were that little bit sharper to land on one or two bits in midfield. We're just a bit late getting to a few balls that we made fouls and invited a little bit of pressure. But having said that, Dimmy hasn't had to make too many saves in the first half, so we would have been delighted if we'd have got to half-time at 0-0. But we weren't able to. And then second half, I thought we came out and had a good thrust about us. And there was a spell in the second half where we were on top. We had the game in their half. We didn't chisel out enough really good moments. But at the same time, I felt like we were going to get something out of the game. And then the second goal comes breakaway from our attack. And that sort of killed it a little bit for us to try and have the grandstand finish. But there were parts of the game we were really competitive in. We've had to work incredibly hard to stay in the game, and we just didn't quite have enough about us in certain moments to sustain our attacks long enough or to make enough of them. But I thought the effort of the players was outstanding in against a team that I think on any given day they're a top team with some top players, and particularly this week when they've got the new manager, you could see they were really fighting and scrapping to get the result. So they deserved the result in the end because they got it, but at the same time I felt like we had a period in the second half where we could really get something out of the game.
Yeah, in the first half, I already pointed out that Dimmy Metov, I think it was half an hour, 35 minutes before he had to make his first save in terms of shots on target. But it was one of those occasions, I guess, Mark, where you have to be as good out of possession as in possession. We
had to work unbelievably hard in the first half, and to Shiloh's, it was tough for him, really. I mean, every time he'd try and get a press on, he had to replace Mendes Lang, and then if he won the ball deep, he had to try and beat Mendes Lang in a foot race, so that wasn't easy for him. Physically, the work ethic he had to put in, there was a lot down that side in the first half. I thought he put a real shift in, and we weren't able to quite make enough of our breakaways. We weren't able to probably get our foot on the ball enough in the first half as we'd have wanted to. And at the same time, we probably played a few too many passes or dribbles square across the pitch, and a real high pressing team today, and they took the ball off us or stopped us in our tracks a few too many times. But it was a day to try and be excellent without the ball, and in moments we worked incredibly hard. We had to get a lot of blocks, we had to force them into areas, we had to try and get a press on the ball where we could, and defend our half really well. We had first half, Willows made a brilliant clearance at the back post when Mendes Lang's got beyond dunks, and all sorts of moments like that I think you're going to have to face today against a team that have played in a real relentless way, and that's what they're going to do now for sure over the next coming weeks and months. So yeah, physically really tough for us. In the second half we had a little bit more forcefulness about us with the ball. We had a little bit more possession in their half, and as I said, I thought there was going to be something in it for us. We had a little bit of momentum in that period, but didn't sustain attacks long enough, and they were able to get out a few times off our own attacking moments and counter-attacks. We've got to get better at that, because when you play the best teams, they're going to punish you, the top players that they got.
Probably thought you were going to go in level at the break, but literally, well, it must have been the last kick of the game pretty much. Horrible moment for Zeno.
Yeah, horrible. I mean, he's obviously misjudged the flight and not been able to deal with it. So if we'd have got in at 0-0, it just gives you that little bit more belief. But having said that, we got a brilliant record this year of coming from behind, brilliant record of scoring goals and winning points late in the games. And we came out with the second half, and I thought we did well. I thought we were well in the game. So it didn't throw us in any way, and we had to really grind it out. And also, when the second goal gets in, it's easy to let that game run away from him and become disheartened. But we know we're going to have to work incredibly hard to stay in games against some of the teams we're playing in the next month. And that was a case in point of that today. So we will make them. Mistakes happen. He'll recover from that. And yeah, he'll learn, no doubt. But in the end, it was obviously a bit of a pivotal moment at the end of the half. But it wasn't a game-defining moment, because we still had plenty of time to try and do something about it. And I thought we gave a good go of that in the second half.
And in that second half, I mean, there was probably a little bit more snappy in midfield. I thought their two wing backs were controlled a little bit more and a lot more at the other end of the pitch in terms of possession. But in that sense, you're a little bit disappointed that you didn't make the most of those moments attacking-wise? I
thought we had a few, actually. We had a few moments where... But what you've got to accept is that they've got some... Like, Curtis Davis isn't a bad centre-half, and I could go through the team and name that. Conor Hourihan's not bad. James Collins isn't bad. They've got a few internationals on the pitch. So actually, you get 1v1 with them, it's not easy to beat them. When you get 1v1 around the box, it's not easy. When a cross comes in, they're fairly good at defending them. So in the end, we're playing against a team that were playing in the Championship last year, and I think 3 of them were playing in international football last weekend. So it's just tough when you play against them. You see the difference when we've played against some of the teams where it's easier to create chances. It's no shock it's harder to create against them because they're really good. So that's the level that I was aspiring, and many of our players are aspiring to try and get to. But they have to go some because there's a really good level. So it is just harder to create chances. But we did have a couple of counter-attacks we didn't make the most of. A few moments in the box where the final cross probably wasn't quite the level that we needed it to be. And when you get those situations, you don't want to turn them into their attacks, which happened 2 or 3 times certainly on the second goal. So they're little bits that we've got to learn from, but we can't get too disheartened when you lose against a team that's as strong as them, full of as many strong players as them, because whilst we have an ambition to be competitive in these games and see how many points we can get, we also have a realism about us and that isn't being pessimistic. It isn't going into a game not thinking we can win, because we think we can beat everyone and compete with anyone. But at the same time, you have to respect the fact that there's a different level of player out there on their team, and make it harder for us to create the chances that we want and make you defend and play in a really relentless way. So these are the games I think you can learn lots from individually and as a team, and hopefully we can pick bits up that will serve us well for the season.
Yeah, you mentioned the home record and the build-up today. Obviously 4 straight home wins now, 2 back-to-back defeats. Does it put any pressure on the 2 away games next week?
No, we've lost to Barnsley and Derby, who were both in the Championship last year. So in that sense, I'm not really disappointed but not surprised. Like, it's going to be hard to beat the best teams. That's just a fact. So no, it doesn't really matter. In the end, it's how many points you get over the season. So it doesn't really put any pressure on us. We go to Ipswich on Tuesday. Anyone who thinks that's an easy win's a bit mad. So that might be a tough afternoon or evening as well. But we'll give it a go and see what we can do. And then we go to Bristol, which is another tough one. We've got a lot of tough games this month. But as long as we're competitive and we're in the games, that's what we're aiming for. And hopefully we can turn competitive performances into point-scoring ones, because that's what we need to do. But I think in the first 10 games, the platform of points that we got has put us in a really good position to make sure that we are hanging on to the coattails of the top half teams for as long as we can.